Okay, students, today we'll talk about biodiversity. You find the lesson in page 116. At the first, you must remind that we have 6 levels of organization: individual, population, community, ecosystem, biome, and biosphere. So, who can answer? What does it mean for an animal or plant to be extinct? Okay, Bad.
When the last member of the species die in a process called extinction.
Thank you, Bad.
You're welcome.
So, guys, meaning of extinct. A species is extinct when no member of the species remain alive anywhere in the world. So, please, all the students put line under the meaning of extinction in your book, please. So again, extinct, it's mean when no member of the species remain alive anywhere in the world. After that, we'll talk about biodiversity. All the students, look at this video, please.
Science. In this video, I'd like to talk about biodiversity. Biodiversity is the variety of life in an area, which is determined by the number of species in that area. It's the totality of genes, species, and ecosystems of a region. As biodiversity increases, so does the health of the ecosystem increase. Think of it as if you were running a business. You want your business to be healthy and make money. Imagine you sell shirts. If you only sold a black shirt with a heart on it, you are limited. And if these shirts go out of style, then you're out of business. If you have a variety of shirts, as the fashion style changes, you are better able to adapt to these changes and continue to make money. As biodiversity increases, the ecosystem has a greater ability to adapt to changes. Biodiversity can be broken down into 3 types: genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. Genetic diversity is the variety of genes which control inheritable characteristics that are present in a population or species. For example, ladybugs come in a variety of colors. The color is controlled by genes. This gives the species of ladybugs a greater chance of surviving as the environmental conditions change. Think of the variety of dogs. The different shape or color of dogs are controlled by genes and either increase or decrease genetic diversity. Greater genetic diversity increases the odds of survival of a species or population as the ecosystem changes. Species diversity is the number of species and the relative abundance of each species in a community. Take a look at the variety of mushrooms collected from a particular forest. Notice how many different species are found in this area. This habitat would represent an area of a high species of diversity. As species diversity increases, most likely the health of the ecosystem increases. And finally, ecosystem diversity is the variation in the ecosystems found in a region or the variation in ecosystems over the whole planet. It is a measure of the variety of biotic and abiotic factors present in an ecosystem. Rainforests usually have a high ecosystem diversity, and deserts or polar regions usually have a low ecosystem diversity. So there you go, biodiversity, genetic, species, and ecosystems. And as these 3 increase, then most likely the health of the ecosystem also.
Okay, guys. So after the video, who can answer? What is biodiversity? Who can answer? Tamimi?
Biodiversity is the variety of life in an area that is determined by the number of different species in that area.
Great, Tamimi. What else? Saud?
The variety of plant and animal life in the world or on a particular human, a high level of which is usually considered to be important and desirable.
Great, Saud. Okay, guys. So, when I talk about biodiversity, I talk about the variety. Variety of what? The variety of life in an area. I talk about the variety of life in an area. So please, all students, put line under the definition of biodiversity in your book. After you know that biodiversity, it's mean the variety of life in an area. What are the three types of biodiversity? Who can answer? What are the three types of biodiversity? Nawaf?
Genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity.
Great. Shehri? Shehri, you can answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity.
Great يا شهري. عبد العزيز العبدان. عبد العزيز العبدان, you can answer? Badr, you can answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Genetic diversity, species diversity, ecosystem diversity.
Great يا Badr, thank you.
You're welcome.
So guys, when I talk about types of biodiversity, you must know that we have three types of biodiversity. The first one is called genetic diversity, the second one is species diversity, and the third type is called ecosystem diversity. So please, all students, make a circle around the three types in your book. Make a circle around genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. And please write this question in your book. What are the three types of biodiversity? What are the three types of biodiversity? The first type is genetic diversity, the second type species diversity, and the third one ecosystem diversity. Okay. So the first type is genetic diversity. Who can tell me what's the meaning of genetic diversity? Genetic diversity, it means what? You can use your book. Genetic diversity, it means what? Saud?
Is the total number of genetic characteristics in the genetic makeup of a species.
Okay, it's true, but what else? Sherry?
A variety of genes of inheritable characteristics and population comprised.
Yeah, great, ya Sherry. So, okay, guys, so when I talk about genetic diversity, I talk about the variety in genes. I talk about the variety in genes. Okay? So يا بدر, if I ask you about the meaning of genetic diversity, you can say what?
The variety of genes.
Variety of genes. So Abdullah Grainy, if I ask you about genetic diversity, you can say what?
The variety of genes or inheritable characteristics that present in population compares.
Okay, Sultan Al Ismail, if I ask you about the meaning of genetic diversity, you can say what?
The variety of genes or inheritable much.
Yeah, great, ya Sultan. So guys, when I talk about genetic diversity, for an example about genetic diversity, change in colors or the variety in colors of what? Of giraffe or of an organism. It's mean genetic diversity is a variety in genes, and you must know that the color is a type of gene. So all students, please put line under the definition of genetic diversity.
Okay, student, today we'll talk about biodiversity and conservation. What is biodiversity? Biodiversity is a variety of life in an area that is determined by the number of different species in that area. What is extinction? Extinction when the last member of species dies in a process. What is genetic diversity? Genetic diversity is the variety of genes or inheritable characteristics that are present in a population comprises. What is species diversity? Species diversity is the number of different species and the relative abundance of each species in a biological community. What is ecosystem diversity? Ecosystem diversity is the variety of ecosystems that are present in the biosphere. What are the three types of diversity? The three types of diversity is genetic diversity, species diversity, ecosystem diversity.
Okay, student, our lesson today is biodiversity, page 116. Review vocabulary. Gene is a functional unit that controls the expression of inherited. What is biodiversity? At first, extinction is a member of species dies in process. Second, biodiversity is the variety of life in an area that is determined by the number of different species. Species diversity. Species diversity is the number of different species that is relative abundance of each biological community. Ecosystem diversity. Ecosystem diversity is the variety of ecosystems that are present in the biosphere.
Okay, good afternoon. We will talk about biodiversity. Biodiversity is the variety of life in an area that is determined by the number of different species. We have three types of biodiversity. Ecosystem diversity, a variety of habitats, ecosystem communities, and species diversity, variety of an species in given area. And we have genetic diversity, differences in DNA among individuals.